My heart is still in my chest. Like,
That's a good thing.
It is a good thing. It is a good thing. Thank you so much. This is so great. I love my job. I teach kindergarten, and it requires a tremendous amount of patience, but the joy that those children bring it's phenomenal.
We want to say one very small, brief thing.
Yes.
No patience is ever required when you're in the vortex.
This is true. How do I stay there?
Well, get there first.
Yes.
In other words, do your best to get there. And if you find yourself leaving, then do anything you can to get there. In other words, just make it a higher priority. Don't let what's happening control your relationship with your vortex. You control your relationship with your vortex, and everything else will fall into place.
Okay.
And there is not an environment more conducive to being in the vortex than to be with children. Little ones like that.
Mm-hmm. So after a day with them, and I get home to my own family of 3 children and my phenomenal husband, I am not in the vortex, and I want to be, and it makes me sad when I'm not.
Well, it's always sad out of the vortex, or irritating. We don't want you to feel any added pressure about it, because everyone is learning their relationship with the vortex, and there are plenty of things that you focus upon that you've been trained to believe that you must focus upon. You see, the things that take you out of the vortex, the predominant, let's just put a big umbrella over everything for a moment. The thing that takes you out of the vortex most consistently and holds you out most often is a flawed belief that it is your job to control conditions that cannot be controlled. And you have an especially interesting job because you're interacting with 30, how many little children do you
22.
have? You're interacting with 22 little children, each of whom knows more clearly than you do that you can't control them.
Yes.
And the fact that you still think you can is what your problem really is.
Yes.
So if you could accept that they don't want to be controlled and don't need to be controlled, that really what you're wanting to be is a catalyst to inspire them into the vortex, because that's really what they want to be for each other, and for the most part are. It's a rare situation when you can be together with 22 individuals who are more likely to be getting into the vortex. But what society does, because society doesn't understand the vortex, society is trying to control conditions. So when you try to control the conditions of these 22 little creators, and in the attempt to control the conditions, you then are a catalyst that takes them out of the vortex. Now you're trying to deal with 22, or at least 15 or 20, who are no longer in the vortex, when if you would let the vortex be a higher priority, your day would go way, 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 way easier. In other words, do you have the luxury of having your class without someone watching over you constantly?
I do.
So why not have an experiment where you decide you wake up and go to sleep the night before, doing your best to bask in the deliciousness of something like your pillow, and wake up in appreciation of your life in general, but then make a written list of things that you appreciate especially about this job. You said, I love my job, and we know you do. I love each of these little kids. I love their propensity for their own vortex. I love their individuality. I love their talent. I love their vast diversity. I love the balance that they bring to each other. I love the early opportunity that they give each other for expansion. I love getting in so early on in their life experience. I love being close enough to the vibrational frequency of them that for the most part it's really a joyful experience to me. So just make this list of positive aspects, and then listen to happy music as you go to work, and make sure that you're in the vortex, and then make the decision prior to arriving at your place of rendezvousing with them that today it is your dominant intent to personally be in the vortex no matter what. And paint it starkly for yourself, just for fun. It will be extraordinary what happens even on the first day as you define Rather than socializing them, I'm going to vortex them.
Yeah.
Rather than controlling them, I'm going to give them leeway. Rather than guiding them, I'm going to inspire their personal guidance. Rather than guiding them, I'm going to guide me.
Yeah.
Rather than controlling their conditions, I'm going to control my relationship with the vortex. And what you're going to notice is that at first, maybe for the first 10 or 15 minutes, maybe even an hour, it will feel way good to you. And then it may start to break down. That's all right. At 10 or 15 minutes or an hour under those conditions is a really good beginning. And then start it over again the next day, and then start it over again the next day. And it is our promise to you that by the end of the week, you will have discovered your true power as a teacher. You will discover that by dealing with your own alignment, that you'll notice things about them that you did not have access to before. You'll become so intuitive that you'll interrupt just at the right moment. You'll inspire and uplift just at the right moment. Your inner being will avert your eyes when there's something that would ordinarily require your attention and socialization. Now, that sounds strange. You mean her inner being is going to keep her from seeing stuff that she's supposed to be seeing? Mm-hmm. Your inner being is going to guide you to the best of them. And in one short week, you'll feel a new awareness of who these kids are. But even more important, they'll feel a new awareness of who they are. But even more important, they'll feel a new awareness of who you are. But even more important, you'll all feel you'll be cooperative components inside this vortex. In other words, you'll go home so full of life, you'll say to your family, think of me as your teacher. And I want it to be at home like it is at school.
Yes.
And everyone will say, well, oh yeah, well, you get to be the boss at school. You tell everybody what to do. And you say, no, I'm reformed.
Yes.
I'm reformed. I inspire them to the best of themselves, but I pretty much let them discover that on their own. Because I realized I've been limiting them by stepping out of the vortex into my militant attitude and holding them to standards that are way lower than they would naturally strive for if we were all in the vortex.
Yeah. Yeah.
Feel the difference between an obedient classroom and an inspired classroom.
Yes.
Feel the difference between a suppressed, well-behaved classroom and a tuned-in, tapped-in, turned-on, high-on-life classroom. Mm-hmm. Who do you want to play with all day? Who do you want to play with? In other words, when you choose your friends, do you choose boring, subdued friends?
No, the loud, fun
You choose
ones.
the loud, fun ones, the ones that think of things, the ones that are free and spontaneous, the ones that say things that just knock you over. You want to be their cheerleader. You want to be the one that laughs the loudest when they do something really funny and applauds the most when they find a new place and appreciates the most of who they are. And they will say, oh, that was my best year ever. That was my best year ever. And if they can have their best year ever be this first year, you know how well it'll go from then, you see.
Yeah.
And then it'll spread. The rumors will spread like wildfire. What are you doing in there? What are you doing in there? I am nothing. Just following the curriculum.
Reading Sarah books.
Just like I'm supposed to. Just like I'm supposed to. Oh, there is this one thing. I love them all so much I can hardly stand it. And they're so wonderful in every way. I make lists every night of who they really are, and I just feel so fortunate that I get to spend the day with this bunch of deliberate, delicious, tuned in, tapped in, turned on kids.
Yes.
And others will say, well, my kids aren't like that. You'll say, mine weren't either until I started looking.
Yeah. Yes. One more question. When I'm in physical pain, how do I know you're going to interrupt me. I've had migraines and back pain, and because of wiping all these little noses, I almost always have a cold. I want to feel good. I don't want to feel sick anymore. And I'm frustrated with myself because I know it's in my vortex. It's there. But why can't I get there?
Another flawed premise. You don't get sick because you wipe noses.
I know.
You get sick because you wipe them when you're not in the vortex.
Okay.
But you'd get sick if you weren't wiping them if you're not in the vortex. In other words, you just blame it on those little runny noses when that microphone is infested.
Oh my God, I know.
In other words, it's easy to blame it on something, but what it's always about, in other words, when you're tuned in, your cells are talking to one another all the time. And when you are in the vortex, then when your cells bump up against something, they deal with it immediately, and you never even know it happened. But if you're out of the vortex, that means you've got resistance going on. Now you're crippling the communication of your cells, and when they bump up against something, they don't have the wherewithal to deal with it in the way, and so it sort of gets a run on it before you become aware of it. And it's easy to give the credit to what everybody always gives the credit to, but we really want you to stop doing that. You have to accept this one responsibility. You have to say to yourself, when I'm sick, it's because I hung around outside the vortex for an inordinate amount of time. And sure, I've got this excuse and this excuse and this excuse, but Abraham tells me none of those excuses are valid. You just have to make the vortex a higher priority, you see. You'll notice once you play this game that we're talking about that not only will you feel better, but all of them will too. And even if someone has a runny nose, because you can't control what's going on in any of their experiences, you can control your perspective about everything. You really can. We say that to everyone, but we are saying it pointedly to you. We know these things about you. You are a powerful focuser. You are very deliberate about your life experience. That's the reason that you get migraine headaches, because you care so much about controlling things that are none of your business to control, that you hold a tension in your body that is the result of all of that. Yeah. And when you start letting go more, you'll find that tension releasing. So what we're saying to you is, in time, you won't create the headache which you are now trying to release. Whatever you're living is always an example or a symbol of your vibrational balance. And so a migraine headache is a precise example of someone who wants something really a lot, who tries really hard to get it, but who's offering most of their effort from outside the vortex. And don't feel bad about that, because almost everybody is doing that. Jerry has said to Esther over the years, let's take time to meditate. And Esther will say, I don't have time. And we want to say, you don't have time not to. You don't have time not to, but there's a tendency to just get all wadded up in a ball and then just try to plow your way through, and that's what gives you the vibrational tension. Is just displaying itself in a very overt and obvious way.
Yeah.
We said to a woman who had pain in her body due to arthritis, who asked the same question, how can I feel positive emotion when I have this pain? And we say, if you will isolate the difference between the pain and the emotion. In other words, we said to her, you can have pain from the arthritis and feel hopeful, or you can have pain from the arthritis and feel fearful. And there's a big vibrational variance between hope and fear. It's the difference between allowing your cells to communicate, and therefore it's the difference between recovery or not. So we want you to make this headache a vortex issue, period. Because that's what it is. It's a vortex issue. So when you get a headache, your response to it is, this is an out of the vortex indicator, period. It's not about runny noses, and it's not about having too much to do, and it's not about anything except that I have allowed myself to stay for too long of time out of the vortex, a vortex that is calling me in a really strong way. We don't know anybody who would be more likely to have a headache than someone who has 22 eager creators in the vortex trying to call you in when you're stubbornly trying to be the teacher that you think you were assigned to be.
Yes.
And we say, let them have their way with you. Just go with it. Just be the fun teacher they want you to be. Be the happy teacher they want you to be. Be the loving teacher that they want you to be. But more than that, be the fun, loving, happy teacher that you really are. Yeah. That you're holding yourself apart from for the sake of a controlled classroom.
Yes.
And then everything else will take care of itself.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.